here's the thing. Black women have a shortage. We already don't have that many black men to choose from. Y'all be in jail, broke, don't have no money, no aspirations, which is like even worse. Like, at least if you broke, be going somewhere, be going to college, you have some plans or something. And then don't be as educated as black women. So now we have like a very small quality group of black men to draw from. And so now it's scarce. And now the little that we have to draw from doesn't even like us. So now we're forced to date outside of our race, especially in California, especially because most black men out here do not want their own race.
All right, guys, we're going to talk about this interesting story by a YouTuber by the name of Shez Sharday. Okay, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I do apologize if I'm not. But apparently she had a conversation with Dr. Hassan Johnson. Okay, now, if you guys remember when Kevin Samuels used to do his live streams, I believe he was kind of making reference to Dr. Hassan Johnson because at the time he was running kind of black male courses or classes, okay, kind of the history behind black male studies. And he was noticing that non-black women were attending these classes. Let's go ahead and dive deeper into this conversation. Let's take a look.
Live, I heard you say one of your initial classes, one of the first classes you had, or earlier classes you had, you noticed that it was predominantly non-black women who were going in there studying black men.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I mentioned that on a panel with Obsidian and Kevin Samuels.
Okay.
And I didn't know where that was going to go. Next thing I know, people were calling me because Kevin was saying it on some other show. But that went through stages. So I've been teaching now for about 24 years, and I came to Fresno State about 14 years ago. And I started teaching a black male course because it was needed. You know, I'm looking at these young brothers who were getting accepted, and a lot of them were, dropping out. A lot of them really didn't have any support structure on how to navigate college. They were having, even the conversations I was listening to in the hallways, I was like, okay, if I don't grab some of these young men, they're not only going to be out of here, they might even be arbitrarily locked up behind things. Yeah,
so shout outs to him for, kind of pouring into the community. Okay, he noticed that there was a void that needed to be fulfilled. So, shout outs to him, but let's keep going.
I created this class alongside a student group for black males and began to implement that. And early on, what I found was I had more black women than men, which, numerically is no surprise. That tends to be the case anyway, as far as the enrollment in school. But I started to get fewer and fewer men and more women because my initial training in my doctorate was as a feminist. I hadn't dealt with gender prior to my doctorate. So one of my primary mentors was ex-Black Panther. She was a feminist. And so I came in with that framework. The only way I knew how to deal with gender was through kind of what she taught me. So I'm teaching this black male class using this approach I got in grad school. And I'm watching the numbers of black males dwindle. I'm seeing the black males in my class looking at the ground, just kind of disconnected. And I'm seeing the women more and more excited. And what I realized was that it was becoming a class where the young ladies were using me to finger wag at the men on the campus to kind of nudge them to do what they wanted them to do.
That's crazy. So black women were kind of taking the course to finger wag, to kind of point the finger and play the blame game. Like, I'm trying to figure it out. I might be jumping the gun here, but let's keep going.
I started to actually ask the men what their perspectives were, and I started to kind of change the narrative. It was a learning process for me as well as for them. And after a couple of years, I noticed the women stopped coming. The number of black women dropped dramatically. The number of black males started to increase. And then after that, within the next couple of years after that, I noticed I started to get this population of white women.
Yeah.
I didn't know why they were there. I didn't know why they were there. And when I began to kind of ask them, in the hallways under the, why are you taking this class? You have to be careful how you do it. And I started to find, well, my boyfriend is black and I want to understand him and his family, or, I'm trying to date some of the men on the basketball team or the football team or whatever, but I don't understand them. So they were
smart.
doing research.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, he was about to say they're doing research. Okay, they're gathering intel to figure out how to actually respond and to talk to a black man. Okay, to learn more about a black man. Any guys that have dated non-black women will realize the culture could be a bit of a barrier. Okay, and if these non-black women are actually learning the culture and trying to figure out how to communicate with black men, that's crazy. That's a whole new level of dedication.
They're getting A's.
Yeah, very smart, very smart.
It's a weird thing where I got to give A pluses to white women in a class on black males because they are handling all the homework assignments and reading everything to a T. They're asking me about the citations that were made by the author. I'm like, good Lord.
Wow.
But they were serious. They were doing research and they were serious about it. And I would say, another 3 or 4 years after that, I noticed the population shifted from, white women to Latinas. And the Latinas were coming in with the same kind of intensity, the same kind of questions, the same motivations. They were dating black men. And this is Fresno. We're in Central California.
Yeah. No.
Black and Latino relationships here are not a strange thing by any measure. So, yeah.
Well, and again, go back to your early, because I said, this is kind of what this conversation was born out of, this whole topic of grabbing your passport and SYSBMs and the controversy behind that. And it's like, you're literally telling me that you had a class that was dedicated to black men, where black women have an opportunity to study their men, understand what they're going through, understand how to relate to them better. And instead of us doing that, you have other women of other ethnic groups, other races going in, taking notes, using it as ammo to get the quote unquote best men out there. Yeah. So it's like, how can you compete with that? This is based upon what you just said. It's like, this is why they are winning our men. If that is such a big complaint, this is why these other women, white women, Latinas, Asians, this is why they are winning or stealing, however you want to put it, our men.
Hey man, that's crazy. Let the best person win. I'm just saying. Okay, if you have different groups that are competing for black men, they're putting in the work, they want to learn the culture, they, want to figure us out. It's hard to compete with that. I'm just saying. Okay, and I'm not saying that there's not black women out here that are doing it, because I do see black women competing for black men. I'm not saying that's not the case, but when there's certain groups of black women that are saying there's no good black men out here, and you have other groups literally competing to get a black man, I mean, it's hard to say that there's no good black men out here. Okay, they're out here. It's just that other groups are applying a little bit of pressure and putting in work to acquire these black men,
because they're actually interested in their interest. Like I said, it goes back to, when I asked you a few minutes ago, I was like, why are black men asking for so little? And then you go in to say, well, they're kind of used to that. They're socialized for that. There's all these complicated dynamics. And if you meet somebody you're asking for breadcrumbs and they give you a sandwich, it's like,
oh yeah,
whoa, what is this?
No, Patrice O'Neal, one of my favorite comedians, he had a whole bit where he talked about the power of okay, like having women that actually say, okay, can you give me a glass of water? Okay. And he was like, it was mind blowing to hear a woman say it. And as funny as was, crazy. And I remember I would listen to Patrice and all the women in my family, because I'd wait till Thanksgiving. And then I'd sit there and listen to Patrice, and the women would get more and more quiet, laugh less and less, and I would laugh more and more, because he was tapping into something that I didn't know I was frustrated about. I didn't know I was curious about. And he was kind of gently raising these concerns. But one of the things he joked about in that moment was, just what it feels like to have somebody that is, not only cooperative, but will happily so, and just something as subtle as that, and so, yeah, when you talk about the different groups of women that were coming to the class, and they're involved in deep conversations in the classes about relationships, they're asking questions, it was a whole different dynamic,
Now, do you think the concern was, do you think that it was genuine, or do you think some of it, because I see some in the comments like, oh, they were kind of using it as ammo just for fetishization, but they don't see them as real men deserving of love or respect? I mean, do you think you saw some of that woman using that as a way to try to manipulate better?
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, there's always going to be a yin and yang in a situation, a good NA bad. Okay, you know, it's possible that black women were learning more about black men to potentially manipulate them. Okay, I'm just saying. Okay, professional athletes, entertainers, things of that nature. That could be a possibility for sure. But you know, as we continue, I'm curious to see what he has to say. But I would imagine for the most part, they genuinely wanted to find love. I'm just saying. But let's keep going.
Like I said, I've been teaching for 24 odd years, and I can tell you the way they came to the discussions, the way they participated. Yeah, there was a lot of genuine, you know, kind of behavior, a lot of reflexivity. They're talking about their experiences. They're asking questions with a kind of genuine, you know, kind of sensibility about it. I don't think any of it was really performed in that way. I think what threw everybody was just that anybody was interested in even having the dialogue. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they were coming to class looking for boyfriends in the class. You know, they were coming to class to learn about black men because of the black men they were already dealing with. So, you know, so it was a different kind of sensibility, and there was an earnestness to the dialogues that were happening that even black men weren't used to. And it was kind of a strange thing. It wasn't negative by any means, but it was different because when black women were the majority of the class, a lot of it was very argumentative. A lot of it was very critical of black men. I mean, I remember there was one class very early on where this young man had come out the military. He's over 6'3". He's, you know, well developed muscularly. He's almost done with his degree, and he was a virgin. He was a Christian. He was a virgin, and you know, he mentioned that in class, and the entire class of women went off on him and were trying to emasculate him at every turn. And I actually had to stop them because they weren't about to stop themselves. And it was just like, you know, why would you come to picture that. Picture a class on black women where the majority of the class are black men who come to talk about how horrible black women are. Like when would you see that actually happen? You know what I mean?
That's crazy because these black men are probably thinking that's a safe place. Okay, I can be vulnerable in this situation and I can get solutions and, you know, try to problem solve and figure out what's going on. Okay, that's probably the reason why they're going there, only to be laughed at and shamed for being virgins. I mean, that's nasty work right there, but let's keep going.
Everybody's tearing into one woman because she hasn't had sex yet. You know what I mean? It was that kind of dynamic, but the level of low-key hostility, what Kevin used to call low boiling contempt, was so palpable that when that shifted over in the next couple of years, it was a strange thing to notice. Like, so even if there were somehow, you know, chameleons that were getting over on us or whatever, the level of hostility and it was far less than what it had been. So, you know, it was strange. But I can tell you the class has been an interesting kind of lesson in racial dynamics because white men made their appearance too. And they made their appearance in the form of a military recruiter and a police detective who came to arrest one of the students. So, so if you look at it symbolically, you have white men, black women, and Hispanic and Latino women who have all made their presence felt. And the most hostile were black women and white men to the very idea of studying black men, right? The military recruiter wanted to take these men out of college and put them in the military. And of course, the detective wanted to arrest somebody. The black women wanted to denigrate the men in the class and finger wag. And then you had white women and Latinas who wanted to take notes and ask questions. You tell me, who's the most hostile out of that?
You know, it's so sad to hear that because it's like, I hear these comments all the time in my page where, you know, it's essentially men are venting and they're like, you know, black women sold us out to white supremacy, or, you know, black women, they're the biggest white supremacists. So, you know, essentially things on that line. And it's like, you know, I'm never quick to just paint a broad stroke and to say, well, all black men are this or all black women are that. Cause I'm like, that's just simply not my experience. Right. But it's like at the same time, you know, what you mentioned, a class that was supposed to be about Black male studies. And when you initially started the paradigm and what was so comfortable at that moment for everybody was to essentially just blame black men. It didn't sound like it was comfortable or even expected to have honest conversations about, hey, maybe men have struggled, where they have been victimized, and how that's impacted the family. Because it's like, and a community community is made up of men and women. So both bring stuff to the table. And I honestly am quite sick of the conversation that I've heard for a long time where it's like, it's just all Black men's fault. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, there haven't been Black men out there and there haven't been things that can be improved. You literally have channels of Black men talking about the different issues that Black men do to themselves. But it's like I think this culture of, again, you can't also go shine the light on women, or you're being misandrist, or you're being, you know, everything other than the son of God. Like, it's just really not healthy. And, you know, again, going back to when I asked this simple question, how to support Black men practically, and I was shocked and not shocked at the response and the behavior, and it resonated with me so much. And I thought, even when I'm thinking about this different conversation in the pygmy space and the different, you know, female content creators, that I love what they're doing and I love how we're having this conversation. But I'm thinking, I don't think any of us have been trained or taught or know what it means to lean in and say, okay, well, what are their interests? Because we can talk about it. Like I said, the last week or two, I've heard women talking about the best interests of Black men, which I think is good. We should have the conversation. But how many of us know how to listen?
Well, and not only listen not to argue.
All right, guys, so there you have it. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section, okay? I think this is a very interesting conversation. You know, it's interesting to see the dynamics of non-Black women competing for Black men, okay? And let's be clear, there are good Black women out here competing for Black men as well. It's just fascinating that you have other groups really stepping it up, okay? They're kind of revving it up in regards to the competition to compete for these Black men, okay? I'm just saying. And there's a subsection of Black women that just simply don't want to compete, okay? They just want to show up as is, take me for who I am. You know, I'm going to wait around, and a high value, high productive, high capable Black man is just going to fall from the sky. And, you know, unfortunately, that's not the way it works, especially in 2024, where there's just so many options. You can grab your passport, you know, you can date non-Black women, you can date a Black woman, you can go your own way. Like, there's just so many options and so much information out here, okay? You have spaces like this, channels like this, you know, people having these conversations and, you know, really expanding the way you're thinking and kind of how you view certain things. So, hey, if you want a productive, high value, high capable Black man, you're going to have to compete for one. Okay. That's just the reality of the situation. And, you know, some people are going to like it. Some people are not, but hey, it is what it is. Well, let me know what you guys think. Go ahead and provide me some feedback. And until next time.